We all know about meditation. Here's one definition of it that was created by one of the other panelists in today's session, Dr. DiMarzo, who defines meditation as the ability to observe, regulate, and redirect one's own attention, even in contexts of pressure, distraction, and mental overload. There are many different types of meditation. Mindfulness is just one. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness is specifically purposely paying attention to experiences in the present moment in a non-judgmental way. So here in this cartoon, we see two women. One of the women is completely oblivious to what's going on around her. She's lost in thought about all the things going on in her life. The other woman is just paying attention to the sun, the trees, perhaps the feel of the wind on her face. So that's all that mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment experience in this open, non-reactive, non-judgmental way. Now, as you can see, neither of them are meditating. You can be mindful anytime, anywhere. And as you'll see, mindfulness is very useful for a lot of reasons in terms of emotion regulation and dealing with difficult situations. But it's really hard to remember to be mindful. But like any other skill, it can be strengthened with practice. And so that's what mindfulness meditation is. Other forms of meditation might be, say, a mantra, or there might be like Tai Chi or yoga or other forms of meditation. But mindfulness meditation is just sitting and paying attention to present moment experience. Meditation is just sitting and paying attention to present moment experience in this open, non-reactive, non-judgmental way. About 40 years ago, Jon Kabat-Zinn created a program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, or MBSR. And this is an 8-week secular program.
Economic development, yes. When now the small industry becomes empowered, of course, the customer get good products, and the taxman also get his share. And this is aligned with the SDGs too. So what is the solution? Innovation Hub. Bridge between knowledge systems. We have the contemporary knowledge system and the traditional knowledge system. Let them bring together lab access and standardization, preclinical research, and regulatory navigation. This can be done in an innovation hub. Another help through the innovation hub is IP advisory and benefit sharing models to understand which is the best for the certain cases, and business modeling and business support. What about the community? To have cross-learning forums where the different knowledge systems meet and share and bring something together, and documenting support. Why? The impact is to have safer, high-quality evidence. Scholarship is a second important issue. When you do innovation incubation in a common way, the incubetee, also the person getting the innovation incubation service, does not get a scholarship. Why? When we get master's, PhD, bachelor students, they get scholarship between 2 years to 5 years. Why? They should concentrate on their studies. They're in the laboratory, they're in the library, in the lecture halls. So why can innovators not get the same privilege? And in the end, the impact will be creating more jobs. Most of the programs, we want more jobs, green jobs, economic development. Innovators do that. They become employers. Give them also the same opportunity like students to have scholarships, a living stipend, so they have time for you, mentorship, and access to startup capital and grants. Target beneficiaries are indigenous knowledge holders, small-scale industry, processors of herbal medicine, and community-based enterprises. And what has happened is accelerated outcomes and therefore economic development. Call for action. This is a Combined Circle scholarships, Fuel Talents Ideas Incubation Hub provides tools and pathways and viable products coming out to benefit the community and the health system. My prayer is, let's invest not just in products, but in the people and ecosystem, and sustain traditional knowledge for future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anka. Our next speaker is Rania Afifi, PhD student, who is going to talk to us as an early career researcher about the perspectives of TCIM research from a young and early career researcher experience. Thank you.
What if the past connects to the present to create a better future? Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Dear panelists, distinguished audience, today I wrote a whole speech to read, but I believe that the speeches from the heart are the best, and I hope that today I will reach your hearts.
I don't think I saved your number yet, Ollie.
To start, I will briefly introduce my researchers in Morocco. So, as you know, every research has a problematic, and the problematic of my research is the unregulated consumption of herbal preparations in Morocco. And as you know again, every problematic has a solution, and the solution of my problematic is very important in the way that it has to fulfill a very important criteria, which is the safety of the consumers. Then, the best solution that I found, it was best practices, or what we called SOPs, standard operating procedures or guidelines that will guarantee the safety of these patients. And this is the short impact or the short outcome of my study or research. For the longer impact, it's about the documenting of the non-codified practices, of
there was
course,
nothing coming
because
through.
it's an uncodified practice, and preserving the ancestral knowledge. This is what we are about today, while strengthening the protection of the consumers. And as I said again, every research has its
website stream.
Not on the website stream.
Sorry for this technical gap. Okay, every research has its challenges. For the challenges of my research, first of all, I didn't find any evidence, no safety data, or I found very low safety data, which was not in a reliable sources. So when we say no evidence, of course we say no methodology, because we can't find an adapted methodology to our evidence if we don't have an evidence. Especially, as they said in the plenary, we don't have biomedical methods are unsuitable to traditional medicine. So this is why I'm a solution-driven, ambitious researcher. I put under in the fish diagram some solutions to these gaps. And the most important and urgent gap is the one who answered this question.
Like your screensaver.
Where do I see myself in 10 years? Unfortunately, in these circumstances, I can't answer this question because there is no infrastructure. And especially in Morocco, we don't have a career path. So I can't even fix objectives to my career. So I can't achieve my dreams or fulfill my goals. Then maybe I can give up, unfortunately, this amazing field. This is why I ask all your help to help me answer to this question. Thank you, Chikuria, yes. Namaste.
Brilliant. That's good because I'm not injured.
Well done. And may I congratulate you, Rania, because you're actually ahead of time, which is, most people here will tell you that never happens. So thank you very much. Our next speaker, unfortunately, couldn't be here in person, but has a recording for us. I believe it's my job to move the slides on as the recording is playing. So please feel free start the recording whenever you like. It's Diana de Carvalho. Oh, do I need to do it right now? I started, okay. The talk is Building Capacity for Impact, Building Capacity for Integrative and Traditional Medicine, Lessons from the CARL program. Here we go.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this important discussion. My name is Diana de Carvalho, and I'm an associate professor in the Faculty of Medicine at Memorial University of Newfoundland in Canada. Today, I want to share how the Chiropractic Academy for Research Leadership, or CARL, transformed not only my own career trajectory, but also the landscape for early career researchers within chiropractic and related fields, and most importantly, how it can serve as a fantastic model for research and leadership capacity building. So I'd like to briefly outline the model here. So a small group of competitively selected promising early career researchers are selected from the field. And they're selected by 3 mentors that are in charge of the program. The cohort and mentors meet for 3 years in person at a residential once per year, during which time there's an intensive week of learning, networking, both at the peer-to-peer level and peer-to-mentor level. Expert speakers are brought in. There's sport, there's physical activity, and some social activities to really bond the group. And the purpose is to start looking at shared resources, data, shared knowledge, to work on shared targeted research projects that continue offline. So in between each of the residentials, the cohort goes off on their own. They stay in connection with each other through online resources, and they continue to work and develop on these projects, multiple projects in both the realm of research, but also in leadership. And you can see as the cycle repeats itself across the 3 years, we get this exponential increase in confidence, productivity, and career stability of the fellows. And at the end, we have these superstar fellows that have experienced this incubator of support that allows them to achieve their career goals. I was accepted as a CARL Fellow in its inaugural cohort at a critical time in my academic development. The program brought together this small but highly motivated group of early career scholars from around the world and connected us with our mentors. And this group has continued to be a source of both professional and personal support throughout my personal and academic career. So what I received was structured mentorship from successful senior researchers, a global peer network that broke down isolation, and collaborative research opportunities that I wouldn't have had access to otherwise. It gave me visibility and credibility, both within the clinical and academic communities, leadership training that extended beyond the research skills that I had from my past education, and all of these elements directly contributed to my achieving tenure and promotion, expanding my research portfolio, and establishing myself as a leader in my discipline. But most importantly, CARL validated the idea that early career chiropractic and integrative medicine researchers deserve the same high-level mentorship and opportunities as those in more established biomedical fields. Today, I'm very honored to serve as a mentor in the CARL program, supporting the next generation of clinician scientists. This transition has been one of the most meaningful parts of my academic career. And my goals as mentor include creating accessible pathways for researchers who lack local mentorship, supporting EDI principles by expanding who gets to participate in high-level research, helping early career scholars develop confidence in research identity,
and also pain length. So yoga seems to be quite effective for improving chronic pain. But this is not enough to really say we can roll yoga out worldwide. We also need to know more about safety. So there's surveys all over the world looking at the safety of yoga intervention in the general population. And these surveys and anomalies show that, of course, yoga is associated with a risk of injury. So everything we do is associated with a risk of injury, but the risk is relatively low. So depending on country of origin and survey methodology, between 1 in 5 and 1 in 3 persons have been shown to ever have been injured due to doing yoga, but most of these injuries were quite mild and transient. So serious injuries are very rare. And what does this mean? So is this much or is this little? And for that we need to put these data into perspective. And it helps to look at the frequency of yoga-related injuries. And in epidemiology, we often look at injuries per 1,000 hours of practice. And for yoga, we can see that there is, again, depending on survey, 0.6 to 1.5 injuries per 1,000 hours of yoga practice. And this is relatively little compared to other forms of physical activity. So already when we look at cardio training or running, the injury risk is 2.5 injuries per 1,000 hours of practice. And it gets much higher with more risky forms of exercise, like soccer, tennis, or skiing, for example. So yoga is associated with a risk of injury, but the risk is relatively low compared to other forms of exercise. So we can see from robust scientific evidence that yoga is relatively effective for chronic pain, and it's at least as effective as gold standard active interventions. And yoga is relatively safe also for patients with chronic pain. And it seems to be at least as safe as other forms of active interventions. But to get the whole picture, we also need to look at cost effectiveness. So to be able to roll out yoga globally, we also need to know on whether yoga is associated with high costs or not. And there is a number of cost effectiveness studies and health economic evaluations of yoga. And what is shown here is a graph on the results of such studies. And depicted is the gain in healthy lifespan compared to costs of yoga interventions. And when we look at the healthcare perspective, that means we look on how much we spend or save from a healthcare perspective, so the cost of yoga and the cost of other medical interventions, we are in the upper right quadrant here. And you can see that from a healthcare perspective, yoga of course induces costs, but it also increases healthy lifespan. So it's associated with a more healthy life, but induces some cost. But when we apply common thresholds that states are willing to spend to increase health, we are well below this threshold also from a healthcare perspective. So yoga is cost effective from a healthcare perspective. When we now look at the upper right quadrant, this is a societal perspective. Of course, healthcare costs or health costs in general are not just direct healthcare costs, but it's also associated costs, for example, of productivity loss, of work absenteeism. And when we take this into account, you even save money when you prescribe yoga, for example, to patients with chronic pain. So you save money from a societal perspective and you increase healthy lifespan when you use yoga. And this means that it's also usable outside of rich countries, and it might also be usable in the global south. So we saw that yoga is effective for chronic pain. Yoga is relatively safe, also for patients with chronic pain. And yoga is cost effective, also for people with chronic pain. But still, it might be difficult to roll out yoga globally because, for example, in rural areas, it might be difficult to approach a yoga teacher or a yoga therapist. And some people are bound to their home, for example, because they are caring for their sick relatives. So not everybody can go to a yoga studio or a yoga therapist. And therefore, research has been done to look at remote delivered yoga for pain management. And not surprisingly, most of these studies were triggered and conducted during the pandemic, where we only could offer remote yoga and no live yoga. And most of these studies focused on synchronous yoga. This means that yoga was offered on the internet, live with a yoga teacher or a yoga therapist, and some of them complemented it with asynchronous yoga materials, like offering, for example, videos posted to a website. Studies have been conducted globally, with about half being conducted in the North America and about a third in Asia and in the rest of the world each. And studies have shown that it might be useful to provide materials, to provide more, for example, chat groups or other forms of help, of nudging patients to participate, and perhaps to also provide technical support, to provide laptops and cameras and yoga materials. But if this is done, then yoga definitely is accepted and feasible also as a remote online intervention. And it's also safe for patients to do it online, and there is preliminary evidence of effectiveness also for remote yoga delivery. So to sum it up, it can be seen worldwide that yoga is requested all over the world, also for the treatment of chronic pain. And quite robust evidence now from RCTs and meta-analysis of RCTs now shows that yoga is effective for reducing pain and associated disability in patients with different forms of chronic pain. Yoga is relatively safe. It's at least as safe as other form of physical activity. And yoga is cost-effective. From a societal perspective, taking into account productivity losses, you can even save money when introducing yoga for the management of chronic pain. And remote yoga interventions are also feasible. So if patients can't come to a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist, it's safe and acceptable to offer remote yoga. So thanks to its effectiveness, safety, cost effectiveness, and remote potential, yoga could be integrated globally into evidence-based pain treatment. And there is still a scalable approach to yoga, and it could be offered much more than it is done at the moment, and it could be available additions to healthcare systems globally. This is the literature and the studies I've used, and I thank you a lot for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Kramer, for this excellent presentations. So, as we build on this understanding, starting with Dr. Sarah Laza regarding the meditation and the brain, and then Professor Kramer on chronic conditions, let's now turn to the role of meditations across the life course, with the particular focus on healthy aging. That is a serious problem in many countries in the world are facing. So I'm also now pleased to introduce Dr. Olga Klimetchi. She's a neuroscientist and psychologist, and also the interim chair of social psychology at the Bundeswehr University in Hamburg, Germany. Dr. Klimetchi is a co-principal investigator of the MEDIC aging or the Silver Sente study, the longest meditation study conducted to date. So before I transfer to Dr. Klimetchi presentations, as she will be joining us online, I would like to highlight that she is going to present key findings from 2 randomized controlled trials conducted across 4 European countries. She will show how both short-term and long-term mindfulness and compassion-based meditation practices can improve cognitive function, reduce anxiety, enhance social affective capacities such as compassion, and reduce loneliness, which is now recognized as an important risk factor for mortality. Her work points to the promising role of contemplative practices in supporting healthy aging in rapidly aging society as we are living now. So I would like to now hand over to Dr. Klimetchi online. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this session. My name is Olga Klimetchi and I will be presenting on the impact of mindfulness and compassion-based meditations on healthy aging. And this is group work from the Medit Aging Group, and we were sponsored by the Horizon 2020 framework. We did our work because we know that the number of cases of dementia are expected to almost triple worldwide, rising from 57 million in 2019 to 153 million in 2050. Livingston and colleagues proposed that we can reduce up to 40% of dementia cases through targeting modifiable risk factors related to lifestyle, like education, like hearing losses, traumatic brain injuries, and in later life, depression, social isolation, and physical inactivity. We targeted the later life section with our Medit Aging project. What did we do? We conducted 2 randomized clinical trials. Study 1 was the SCD-WELL trial with patients who report subjective cognitive decline, and they were recruited in memory clinics across 4 European countries. They either did 8 weeks of a meditation-based interventions or an 8-week health self-management program, and we did a 6-month follow-up. We also did the AgeWell trial, which here consisted of 137 healthy older adults in France, and they underwent a very comprehensive behavioral and biological test battery. They were randomized to either an 18-month meditation intervention or to an active control group who learned a non-native language, and this was English, or to a no intervention passive control group. We retested them behaviorally after 9 months and then again after 18 months, and we did a follow-up 5 years later. So pertaining to SCD-WELL, our question was, can meditation training reduce anxiety in these 4 European countries, UK, Germany, France, and Spain? So we had these 147 participants from memory clinics with a mean age of 72 years who report subjective cognitive decline but who score normally on cognitive tests. And they were randomized to either 8 weeks of mindfulness and compassion or to 8 weeks of an intervention related to health self-management. What did the interventions look like? In the caring mindfulness-based approach for seniors, participants did body scans, mindful movements, sitting meditations, and they had psychoeducation that was supposed to help participants manage cognitive concerns and worries. In the health self-management program, which was based on a published manual previously adapted and validated for subjective cognitive decline, participants learned about topics like sleep, stress management, exercise, diet, and planning for the future. We observed lasting reductions in anxiety, which is a risk factor for dementia, after both interventions. So both the mindfulness intervention and the health self-management program reduced anxiety levels from before the training to after the training, and this reduction was maintained at follow-up. And this is good news because this risk factor was reduced to subclinical levels by both interventions. We also saw that both interventions improved a composite score of cognitive functions, which is also great news. Then there were also some specific effects of the interventions. The compassion and mindfulness intervention improved self-compassion, so compassion, feelings of care for oneself, from before the training to follow-up at 6 months. And the health self-management program specifically improved physical activity from before to after the training, here in green, and this increase was maintained at follow-up. Regarding the AgeWell trial, with 137 participants in France and a mean age of 69 years, these participants were randomized to either meditation training or to non-native language training or to no intervention, and our primary outcome was the perfusion or the volume in 2 brain regions, the anterior cingulate cortex or the insula. And we did not find evidence for either improved brain volume or improved brain perfusion due to this intervention. So this is a null result. However, we found, and here you can see pictures from our group of meditators and pictures from the participants who learned English, we found that 18 months of mindfulness and compassion-based intervention compared to the group who learned English, so compared to the active control group, improved the attention scores of the meditation group in their self-reports and favored the maintenance of a composite score that includes compassion, empathy, and prosociality. So there was an impact on socio-affective measures and on self-reported attention. We also observed that both interventions, the meditation training and the non-native language training, decreased loneliness, and loneliness is an important risk factor for mortality. So you see that the mean loneliness from before the training decreased to after the training, here V3, this is after 18 months, in both the meditation group, here shown in violet, and in the non-native language training group, here shown in orange. So in summary, we see that in older adults with subjective cognitive decline, both a 2-month mindfulness and compassion-based intervention and a 2-month health self-management program led to a decrease in anxiety and to lasting improvements in cognitive functions. We also saw in the 8-well trial that in older adults from the general population, we saw no significant effect of the 18-month mindfulness and compassion-based intervention on brain perfusion or volume, neither in anterior cingulate cortex nor in the insula. But compared to the non-native language training, the mindfulness intervention improved self-reported attention as well as social affective capacities. And both the 18-month mindfulness compassion-based intervention as well as the non-native language training reduced loneliness, which is a risk factor for mortality. What is important to me, and I've been doing these intervention studies for almost 20 years now, is that we always see a substantial variability between participants. So some participants benefit from an intervention and others do not benefit from the intervention or even get worse. If you're interested in our work, you can find more under Medit Aging when you type in this keyword here in PubMed or in other search engines. I'm very happy to have been part of this symposium, and I look forward to your question and to the discussion points.
Thank you, Dr. Clemeci, for presenting this Medit Aging study. So now we finish the first segment that is on the scientific evidence. So what we would like to highlight is that we started with that meditation. It's not a religious or the ancient tradition. It's a scientific evidence-based growing evidence. At the same time, when there is scientific evidence, it's essential, but it is not sufficient on its own unless we transfer it into the policy or in the health systems or in our daily practices. Otherwise, it's not useful. So that's why we are going to have in our second segment that we are going to present how different mindfulness-based approaches have been incorporated in policy and practices. So I first would like to invite Ms. Penny Low, who is a former member of Parliament in Singapore and also a systems innovator and lifelong mindfulness practitioner. During her time in Parliament in Singapore, she shaped national policy across multiple ministries and led pioneering initiatives in urban development, digital transformation, and social innovations. So I'm very delighted and honored to invite Ms. Low, who will highlight that with the growing burden of mental health, that now understood not only as a health issue, but as the core economic and human capital priority. Drawing on example from Singapore, UK, and different other contexts, she will show how mindfulness can be scaled as part of public health infrastructure. She's going to outline 4 key policy pillars to improve access to mindfulness. The first is digital tools as there is a rapid development of the digital technology. The second, it's the workplace. Wherever you are in a healthcare or in an education setting or in any workplaces. And the third, it's social prescribing. And the last but not the least and the most important one, it's a trained and supported workforce. So I'll stop here, and I would like to hand over to Ms. Penny Low to share her own experience of how integrating mindfulness in different settings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Theta, for the very nice introduction. First, I'd like to start with an apology for my ultra-sexy voice. And I hope that you could hear me clearly. Is that okay? Well, Excellencies, friends, and I will call all of you my fellow architects of human flourishing. My deepest gratitude to the World Health Organization, especially to Dr. Geetha and Dr. Sylvie, for putting this panel together, and to Dr. Theta for moderating this session. And of course, much thanks to our host, the Government of India, for hosting this convergence of ancient wisdom and modern science. We gathered today here because we believe that the future belongs to those who can marry the wisdom of the past with the rigor of the future. In fact, there is a physician in all of us, not someone in a white coat, but an ancient intelligence system that has sustained our species for millennia. It's the reason why we are on top of the food chain. We are able to self-heal, but perhaps that system and that physician inside us has been asleep for some time. So today, I would like to make the case for unlocking this innate physician through rigorous research into meditation and mindfulness and incorporating it into our daily practices, into national policies. But first, let me tell you a story about a man by the name of Alan. In 2018, in a boardroom, Alan, who is the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, was greenlighting a $1 billion acquisition. But beneath his tailored suit, his body tells a different story. 15 months on 4 hours of sleep, his cortisol levels are chronically elevated, flooding his system like corrosive acid. Inside his brain, his prefrontal cortex, responsible for strategic thinking, emotional regulation, and ethical judgment, is showing reduced activity. Meanwhile, his amygdala, the fear center, is hyperactive, always on the high. And you know that a leader without inner silence is a captain steering a broken ship. 6 months later, with the Lehman Brothers crisis, the deal also collapsed. 600 million in write-downs and 2,000 staff were let go. In other words, 2,000 families suffered. The market called this simply just a strategic error, but neuroscience called it cognitive bankruptcy. Alan wasn't unintelligent, he was physiologically incapable of clarity. And when he fell, thousands fell with him. And this isn't an anomaly. A McKinsey study found that 70% of C-suite executives reported chronic stress, with 58% showing clinical markers of burnout. We are handing the steering wheel of our organizations, of our government, of our nations, and maybe even of our families to people driving through cognitive fog. Alan's story is only a microcosm of a global emergency. We face two massive waves converging. It was said by my fellow speakers earlier on, the silver tsunami itself. By 2050, 2.1 billion people will be over 60 years old. up from 1 billion in 2020. Dementia cases will triple to 152 million globally, and the cost is $2.8 trillion by 2030, rising to 9.1 trillion by 2050. And the second wave is, of course, the digital hurricane. With the advent of generative AI, we think that we're having things better, more convenient, but at the same time, there seems to be some cognitive decline in people who do not improve themselves deliberately, but just rely everything on what's generated on the internet. A 2024 Nature study found AI adoption increases workplace stress by 35%, driven by job insecurity, skill obsolescence, fears, and techno overload. Projected AI-related mental health costs, $200 to $300 billion annually by 2030 if unaddressed. So it seems that we have upgraded every technology on Earth except the one sitting in between our two ears, and it is time to awaken our inner physician. The economic toll is staggering. Mental illness currently costs $1 trillion annually in lost productivity. A 2022 Harvard study also estimated the comprehensive burden at $5 trillion annually, which is equivalent to 16% of globally disability-adjusted life years. And by 2030, projected costs would be about $16 trillion, which is equivalent to the second biggest economy in the world, being China. In Switzerland alone, professional exhaustion costs 17.6 billion Swiss francs annually. In Italy, 88.5 billion euros, and globally, 12 billion working days lost to depression, anxiety, and other mental illnesses. We are pouring money into managing illnesses, but we are starving the science of prevention and self-healing. But yet, amidst this storm, there's actually some hope. Always there's hope. You've heard from my fellow panelists, rigorous research has proven meditation induces measurable biological changes from brain architect to stress biology to disease prevention. But there are also countries who have taken steps. Countries like UK that have done research into mindfulness-based cognitive therapy and proved that for every $15, that proved that for every £1 spent on it, £15 is saved. In other words, the ROI is 1,500%. In Singapore, in October 2023, we also launched our national strategy on mental health and well-being. Not because there's a high proportion of people who are mentally stressed or ill, but in anticipation of what is to come, because we also have a huge tsunami of elderly or the aging demography coming. And in fact, with that strategy itself, what we have done is that we try to convert the small island of Singapore, which is all of 725 square kilometers, into a natural and nature-filled country and take people on forest bathing, forest walks, so that even in a small island, you can find solutions to embrace mindfulness. Apart from that, we have also approached the whole issue with a 4-tier approach, where we divided the levels of intervention from mild to intense. 4 tiers, so that we are able to look and handle the stress level in the society, in the individual, in the families, in the workplace, from prevention to reduction. I wouldn't call it cure because we don't know, but the aim is, of course, to cure. But apart from that, there are countries like Norway, as well as India itself, that have launched different types of programs, from low intervention to high intervention. And I understand that in India, you have also launched an app to address the issue so that the technology is accessible and affordable to everyone. Therefore, investing in the mind to me, is the ultimate infrastructure project. While roads connect cities, clarity connects humanity. So if medicine is free and the science is sound and the returns are extraordinary, then why isn't this everywhere? And I think it's because we are standing on a bridge that's half built. We have ancient wisdom on one side, public policy, and even corporate policies on the other side, but research will be the steel that connects them all. There are critical unknowns in meditation itself. And the unknowns include things like, what is the optimal dosage? We prescribe pharmaceuticals in milligrams, but what about meditation? Is 5 minutes sufficient? 20 minutes? 60 minutes? What is the dose-response relationship across different populations, cultures, conditions? We do not know for sure. We need research. 2, mechanism of action in specific diseases. How do meditation specifically interrupt the pathway to autoimmune diseases, to chronic pain, to cognitive decline? We can see that it works, but we need to map the biological mechanisms precisely. And 3, equity and accessibility. Which delivery modalities, in person, digital, hybrid, will work, and again, for which population? What about rural communities, low-income families, elderly, disabled? We need evidence on what will work for whom. And 4, long-term sustainability. What societal factors will enable a 10-year, 20-year adherence? We know that it has to be a long, ongoing process and not just being elevated in one sitting. But we need evidence, and we need to know how do we integrate meditation into daily life so that it becomes habitual, as the case of brushing the teeth. And finally, we also need to learn how to integrate it with the existing science, existing medical practices. So how do we ethically combine meditation with pharmaceuticals for optimal outcomes? What are the interaction effects? What about the contradictions, if there is any? These are not rhetorical questions. They are research gaps, and they demand investments in order for us to be able to democratize meditation as a form of inner physician, awakening the inner physician, making it available, accessible, affordable to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Without this evidence, insurance companies would view meditation only as a perk and not as a procedure. They will not finance it. Finance ministries will view it as wellness and not wealth creation. Medical schools will view it as an alternative and not a fundamental. And organizations will not invest without proven ROI. So I advocate that we put some science, put our heads together, put our investments together to put science into meditation, because science doesn't invent the truth, but it translates the truth into a language that policies and CEOs can understand. So the call here is really to come together, to do something, perhaps set up a fund, maybe be ambitious to set up a $1 billion fund so that we can use this to democratize healthcare for everyone. And it is Margaret Mead who once said, never underestimate the power of a small group of committed citizens, for it is only that mobilizes, I'm paraphrasing her, that mobilizes resources and change the world. So ladies and gentlemen, my time is up, and we are all here to do something good for humanity. Why not join forces, support the works of each other, support the works of WHO to make a kinder, a more inclusive, sustainable, and mindful world for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Penilo, for this excellent presentation. So now we have a second speaker on the policy and practice sessions. So I am honored and delighted to invite Dr. Marcelo Damaso. He is a Brazilian physician and scientist in family and community medicines at the Federal University of São Paulo. And he also is the founder of Brazil Center for Mindfulness and Health Promotions. He leads clinical trials and large-scale implementation studies focused on mindfulness, self-care, and digital well-being. We are very honored that Dr. Damaso is joining us today in person in the room to show how mindfulness can be embedded into routine medical practices in Global South and reduced burnout among health professionals, improve clinician-patient communications, and strengthen self-care. Drawing on the experiences from Brazilian trials and large-scale programs, he is going to present us how cost-effective and culturally adaptable strategies for integrating contemplative practices across clinical, organizational, and digital health systems. So I would like to invite Dr. Marcelo. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning. I will ask permission to break the protocol to give a small practice of mindfulness. Can we? I will invite you just to stop a little bit to restore balance. So you can adjust the body, eyes opening or close it. Just feel the body in touch with the chair. And you can make a conscious breathing, just conscious of the in-breath and out-breath, just for some seconds. And then return to open the eyes. I hope it helped. So thank you for the invitation. I'm a family physician. I will present some data on the integration of mindfulness in the health system. As you saw with Dr. Sarah, mindfulness is the training of the muscle of awareness. It helps us to stay less mind-wandering, stay more focused in your daily life, make better decisions, have better mental health, and also be in touch with your inner values, purpose in our life. Why bring mindfulness into health system? So it's well known that we are living a mental health crisis and burnout spread out in our health professionals. We have a fragmented, over-medicalized care, and we need more self-care approach. So we can see mindfulness training. We are talking about the secular protocols as a self-care approach integrated to medical care. So it's very important if you think that we are living an aging process of our population. So chronic conditions is the new normal. Medications, of course, is important, but the cause of the chronic conditions is more rooted on lifestyle or bad habits. So you have to train to help our population, our patients, to develop skills in order to have more healthy habits, in more participative, have more autonomy, self-efficacy in their treatment, and also self-monitoring of their symptoms and signs related to health. So you can see mindfulness as a self-care intervention. It's not only a philosophical approach, but we should measure also mindfulness training as a self-care intervention. So instead of use only clinical outcomes as primary outcomes, we should use also self-care as a primary outcome or secondary outcome. We have questionnaires to measure that, so we can address better what's healing really happen when we are making mindfulness interventions. It's the same for all the CIM interventions I see. So we have to mix to the clinical outcomes, also self-care outcomes, so you have a better picture of the results of those interventions. So it's very important in terms of aging population and chronic conditions. Mindfulness is encountered in the TCIM approach, but also in the mainstream of health system education also. So it's an example, a medical book we call Current. It's updating a medical book. So since some editions, we can find mindfulness as a evidence-based intervention, such as other kind of treatments, especially for mental health disorders. So in Brazil, we have a local mindfulness protocol. We adapted from the original protocol from John Kabat-Zinn, as Dr. Sarah showed, but adapted to our culture, to our language, especially to be implemented into health system in a feasible way to promote self-care, to promote self-efficacy and autonomy for the patients and users of the system. I will show some of our results. As you know, mindfulness has over 20,000 studies published until now. So it's a growing, exponential growing in terms of research, especially in the field of mental health, chronic stress, prevention and treatment of anxiety, depression, and also in the positive side of mental health, so making flourishing resilience available for the population, for the patients. In a way they can relate in another perspective with their anxiety symptoms or depressive symptoms or pain, chronic pain. So it's a change in the relation with the stress factor. It's one example when we applied our protocol to health professionals in the biggest hospital in Brazil, health professionals with chronic stress and chronic pain. So they got less catastrophization, less pain interference in their daily life through a better emotional regulation. They are not health professionals, but another example how to apply to professionals. They are police officers from Brazil. We applied our 8-week programs as well, and they got better burnout symptoms and also less operational stress, and the other side of mental health, higher resilience and more life purpose in their work. It's a study with older people. We compare our protocol to digital inclusion, and we find that digital inclusion was better to improve quality of life, and mindfulness was better to promote less anxiety and depressive symptoms and better sleep quality and more intrinsic spirituality. That means to be connected with our inner values, purpose, and also spirituality. Another example, we compare our mindfulness protocol to a mindful eating protocol for women with overweight overweight and obese women from low-income communities. They were primary care patients, 2084 low-income women, and both groups improved eating behavior and reduce binge eating. So it's in the line with that idea to promote better self-care abilities or skills to handle better the condition. In terms of economic evaluation, cost effectiveness, we have lots of research on that, just showing some of them. So it's clear that mindfulness protocol is equal or superior to user care in terms of cost effectiveness, save per participants, and save for payers as well. Of course, it includes a cost to train, to deliver the protocol, to train the professionals, but the net balance is too positive in favor of mindfulness interventions. In that line, we know that when we are talking about implementing mindfulness or self-care interventions into the health system, we are talking about equity, diversity, and also inclusion. So the best way to do that is to train our health professionals to deliver the training to address all the population. In Brazil, we just published this paper to show how much it would cost. And for Brazil, it would cost about $2 million and $500 American dollars per year to train during 10 years about 90,000 health professionals to deliver the intervention. So there's a cost in that, but compared to the cost with medication, especially mental health disorder medication, it's less than 3% per year of the budget of the health system. So it's a cost-effective a way to promote in an equitable way mindfulness or other TCIM interventions into the health system. We are making the case for our government. We are providing a free mindfulness training for primary care patients. We started face by face, and now we are going to the online intervention, digital intervention, to promote this kind of intervention, to evaluate the impact, to help our government to implement that when there is political motivation to do that. Our benchmark is UK. UK has a public policy on mindfulness. So since 2004, mindfulness is available for all patients into the NHS. And also they train the members of the parliament on mindfulness to improve their health and their mental health, but also to promote the policy inside the parliament. They just released a report on that. And the key message is that we disagree better. Means that they have different opinion, but they get less in conflict because of that. So the key message, mindfulness is an evidence-based, cost-effective psychotechnology to promote self-care abilities inside the health system, should be introduced into the line of care into the health system as other interventions available into the health system. We can support health professionals with that. Health professionals can get better health, but they can also get better clinical communication and better skills to prescribe those kind of interventions to patients. And it's special. It's fundamental to have political support and health management support to introduce that in an equitable and sustainable way. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Marcelo. So now we are going to our last but not the least speaker, Dr. Guruja Mutalik. We would like to conclude with his own experience and returning to the lived experience and the personal practice. So I'm very delighted and honored that we have received this online participations from Dr. Guruja Mutalik. He is 92 years old, but when you see his recording, he doesn't look like 92 years old. And it's thanks to this mindfulness and the long, several decades of practicing yoga and mindfulness. He is a senior physician and a former WHO leader with a lifelong commitment to integrated healing sciences, healthy aging, and stress-free living. So we are now going to have Dr. Mutalik online, who will invite us to consider meditation as a pathway to restoring balance and meaning in our lives. He will connect ancient contemplative traditions with modern neuroscience, showing how simple breath-based practices can support physiological regulations, emotional clarity, and human connections. He will then guide us into a brief share practice. So I would like to hand over to Dr. Mutalik for his lived experience and personal practice. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, delegates, scientists, dear friends, today, in these few minutes together, I have the great honor and privilege to lead this group to meditate together, not only as an empowering process, but for restoring balance in our lives. The theme of this historic summit itself. Let us meditate on this simple truth. We live in an age of extraordinary progress and unprecedented imbalance. Our minds are overstimulated, often in turmoil, our bodies overdriven, our hearts often undernourished. Meditation is not an escape from this world. It is a gentle, quiet way of coming back to alignment with ourselves and with nature. Let us meditate first on our own breath. The breath is the healing secret of life. It's available to the poorest and the richest, to the young and to the old. When we sit quietly, spine erect, eyes softly closed, and simply follow the breath as it flows in and out, the nervous system begins to settle down, heart rate slows, blood pressure normalizes, inflammation reduces, and the brain rewires itself towards calm and clarity. That silent witnessing awareness is the real home of equanimity, compassion, universal kinship, and love. From there, we can respond to life instead of merely reacting. Let us meditate on healing and resilience. Modern science tells us that chronic stress shortens our health span, accelerates aging, and weakness weakens immunity. At the same time, meditation improve emotional regulation, enhance brain plasticity, and strengthen immune system. Ancient wisdom has always said the same thing in another language. When the mind is quiet, prana flows freely. When prana flows freely, the organs, the tissues, and the cells remember their natural rhythm. Meditation, then, is not merely a technique. It is a mind's journey inwards and upwards for renewing the inner healing engine of the body and of our system, which throbs in each one of us. Now let us meditate on something very close to my heart. How to synthesize the intellectual rigor of evidential approach of modern science with the natural wisdom of emotional, experiential learning. On one side, we have observation, data, methodology, clinical trials, and critical questioning, statistical significance, sampling, and so on. On the other hand, we have the timeless insights of yoga and Ayurveda. In fact, together they make what I call as Ayur Yoga, and all contemplative traditions drawn from all cultures and civilizations worldwide, refined through centuries of human experience. If we bring these two together with humility, we can develop a new integrative healing science, a healing science that is based on integration, coexistence, cooperation, and synthesis, the well springs of equanimity, the inner resilience, the intellectual power of knowledge, and the untimeless power of healing, so that we can restore harmony and vigor of nature within and around us. Let us meditate on this integration, not science against spirituality, not tradition against modernity, but an intimate partnership where evidence keeps us honest and experience keeps us human. Finally, let us meditate on blessing for a full and meaningful and healthy life. The ancient seers of India prayed not only for long life, but for worthy life, filled with clear seeing, deep listening, and shared joy. They expressed it in a beautiful mantra that which was articulated in Atharvaveda, which I would like to share with you. In essence, they prayed, Jivema Sharadashatam, Vashyema Sharadashatam, Shundvema Sharadashatam, Modama Sharadashatam, Prabhavama Sharadashatam. May we live for 100 autumns healthily. May we see 100 autumns. May we hear 100 autumns. May we rejoice together for 100 autumns. Let us think and discuss together for 100 autumns. It's not just a wish for a long lifespan, but for a rich health span. To live, to see, to listen, to rejoice with a clear mind and a compassionate heart. Let us close in silence for a brief moment, 2 minutes. Let us feel our breath, feel the quiet in this very room, and offer the peace to all beings. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let there be peace in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mutalek. So as we now conclude all the speaker sessions, and actually we would like to have some the actual practice of the meditations, but because of the time, and you will also have more opportunity in the discovery zone. I hope you have already registered those sessions because they are on the ground floor. So you will have at least 15-minute sessions if you register. So it will be during the lunchtime and also in the evening. So you will have the actual, to have the experience of meditation at the same time and how your brain functions. So now we conclude all the speaker sessions, but just before we go, as the time allowed, we would like to pose just 2 Slido questions before you go away. So I hope that you all have scanned the Slido QR code or the slido.com. So I think it's the QR. The QR is not working properly. So I mean, it's as also now we are approaching into the lunch time. So we. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can see it on the phone. I can see it on the phone. Okay, thank you everyone. Yeah, so now we have actually the Slido as well as the questions from the Slido, from the chat. So actually, because of the time, I would like, we won't be able to answer all the questions, but only 2 questions that we received through the chat. So I would like to post the questions, and if one of our speakers, either online or in the room, can answer this. So one of the questions is that in randomized control trials on yoga, blinding is often possible or impossible. How can we address this issue? Even in systematic reviews and meta-analysis, we have reduced the gradings. So what is the impact of different variety of this? Who can answer? Holger? Thank you.
Okay, oh, perfect. Now there it is. Yeah, thanks a lot for this really important question. And this is one question everybody encounters that is doing research, not only in yoga, but in every non-pharmacological approach. So we can't blind yoga, and there is no placebo yoga, just as there is no placebo mindfulness intervention. So we really have to deal with this problem, and the problem is real. And when, for example, we do a systematic review and we do a risk of bias assessment and a grade rating, we can't end up with a high certainty of evidence because we can't blind patients. And so we will always have kind of a stigma of not having the highest possible evidence that is out there. And we are currently trying to deal with this problem in a way to find a consensus how to work with it, but currently there is none. So it really is that we end up with saying there is no blinding and this is a high risk of bias. I had some great conversations around this with Susan Wieland from Cochrane Complementary Medicine. One thing that arose is it really bias when we can't blind patients, or isn't the unspecific effect, so the context effect, part of the intervention? So can we say when we don't blind a patient and they know and they expect that it might help them, is this bias or is this part of what we do and what we want to achieve? But at the moment, this is an unanswered question, and everybody is very welcome to join into the discussion and to work on that together with us, because, of course, we generate high-quality evidence. It's just not labeled that way. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Kramer. So we would, because of the time, I will pose another one last questions. And we receive a lot of many good questions from the chat, but I do apologize because of the time. So the questions is that there are many spiritual and religious belief systems promote iterations of mindfulness and meditation, example like prayers, holy sitting. So to what extent can and should religious practitioners be included in research and practice shared today? Who would like to answer? I saw Sarah and Olga both online. Sarah, would you like to answer?
Sure. Yeah, no, I definitely, it's a great idea to include people who are experts in some way with these practices. And on several of my studies, can you hear me? Okay, yeah, and so hi, can you hear me now? Yeah. So I agree that it's good to include experts when you design these studies and interpret the data. And on several studies, we have included experts of one sort or another in our studies. But it's also, I think, really important for the scientists who are doing the research to have a practice and to be as well versed as possible in whatever practices that they're examining. I think it really makes a difference.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So as we now come into the end of we are already exceeding the time. So as we now come to the end of the sessions, just before we close, I would like to just give a summary of our key takeaway as before we leave the room. So I mean, we have an excellent panel, and then there are a lot about the meditations. As we all know, that it is meditation. One key point that we would like to highlight from this session is that meditation is not a religious or a traditions or from a single tradition or religions. In one form or the other, it exists across culture and society in one way or the other. Second is that mindfulness and meditation are increasingly supported by scientific evidence, as you see from our excellent panel, and it should be part of our daily life in different settings, either healthcare, education, or in social life. And lastly, on the 21st of December, that is the World Meditation Day. So it reflects that there is a growing global recognition of meditations, not as a niche or cultural practices, but as a universal human capacity that is relevant to all of us and how we live together. So I would like to conclude that the challenge ahead of us is not just whether meditation or not, because we all know that mindfulness and meditation works, but how we invest in research and how we build partnership and how we create policy frameworks that allow those practices to be scaled responsibly and equitably. And I would like to conclude that I hope that today's discussions is useful and that will lead to future collaborations, either to research initiative or policy frameworks or to the working group. I really thanks to all our excellent speakers who are in the room and also online at the odd hours at 2 a.m. in the morning for Sarah. At the odd hours at 2 a.m. in the morning for Sarah and Olga. And to all our audience online and also in the room. We thank you for your presence, your engagements, and the openness. You can reach us at the second Global WHO Traditional Summit 2025. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tito.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much. That was excellent.
That was not me. Okay. All right, thank you very much. A round of applause for our panel. Before you move out, is this yours? Before you move out, ladies and gentlemen, a couple of important housekeeping announcements. Lunch is in Hall 2. So the way to navigate to that hall is when you exit this one, you turn left, and then there is a corridor behind which leads you to Hall 2. That's where lunch is. Tea and refreshments is outside, as you've already encountered, and we will be reconvening in this hall at 1:30 actually, for the session that will begin at 1:45. 1:30, you are now free until 1:30 to visit the exhibition where we've got 4 immersive zones. You can journey through ancient philosophies, living practices, and scientific frontiers, shaping the future of integrative health at the Traditional Medicine Discovery Exposition. You can also move for lunch. It may not be ready as yet. And then please come back here by 1:30 for the session that will begin at 1:45, the plenary on reimagining health systems for balance, safety, and resilience. This evening, we have a dinner and a cultural performance that is happening from 7 p.m. onwards. This is happening in the multi-purpose hall on level 1. You have to make your way to this multi-purpose hall. There's a short walk. We've got volunteers available on the floor to guide you. We also have a map, which is on the ground floor, which gives you the layout of the area. Please consult that map to get to the multi-purpose hall in time. We have a well-known musical composer and environmentalist, Ricky Cage, who you may have heard of, who will be performing tonight, so don't miss that. Please consult the map to make your way to this multi-purpose hall. It's a small walk, and we've got volunteers on the floor. After dinner, we have buses that will take you back to your hotels or wherever you were picked up from. So just look out for those buses, and then you can board the right one. We will be back here for tomorrow morning for our session that will begin at 9 again. So please ensure that you leave the premises and are back here in time. For now, you're free to go to the exposition, chat around, meet up with people, network, and make your way to hall number 2 for lunch. Come back here by 1:30 for the session, which is plenary 3, and then we'll go on from there. Thank you so much. Please take your belongings with you. We won't be able to take care of it. Speakers for plenary 3, please ensure that you're here by 1:15 or 1:20 to be able to integrate with your interface with your moderator. Thank you.
Internationally renowned Indian music composer, 3 times Grammy Award winner, US Billboard #1 artist. He quite simply will blow you away. Internationally renowned Indian music composer, 3 times Grammy Award winner, US Billboard #1 artist. He quite simply will blow you away.
इसका ले लो बस एक और
internationally renowned Indian music composer, 3 times Grammy Award winner, US Billboard #1 artist. He quite simply will blow you